I've been thinking a lot about insert shots lately in movies. You see, I've been working on some new short films and I realized I've just been ignoring insert shots, which is odd because it's such a great way to tell your audience exactly what you need them to know. You don't have to write exposition dialogue or try to sneak something into a scene. It's rarely abstract. In fact, it's one of the most practical narrative devices filmmakers have. Directors use insert shots when they want to convey very specific information to the audience. David Fincher is often cited as a reference for his ability to utilize insert shots. Now, I agree, Fincher is an expert at the insert shot, but there's plenty of videos about Fincher, and I want to focus on another director who utilizes insert shots in a very different way that fascinates me: Denis Villeneuve. I want to rewind to Denis' first film with cinematographer Roger Deakins, one of the best crime thrillers of the last 20 years, Prisoners. This is a film about families being ripped to shreds, a father being pushed beyond his psychological limits, and a detective hell-bent on solving a case no matter what the cost. It challenges religious faith while also perfectly showcasing the middle class. This is a story that could happen in your own neighborhood, and thus the cinematography and locations reflect that. Houses don't look creepy because they've been dressed up to look haunted. They look creepy because these houses look like that in real life. And the insert shots Denis and Roger pepper throughout this entire film follow that same motif. Take this sequence for example. Following a stylized and dramatic takedown of our key suspect in the crime, we're presented with a montage of insert shots that show off the evidence being collected from the RV. The CSI team is baffled because they can't find anything criminal here, but the audience can sense something is off, just like the CSI team.
What do you got?
Well, this thing's clean. I mean, it's filthy as shit, but we didn't find anything.
And these shots of what seem innocent and meaningless take on meaning because of the way they're presented to us. Almost like photographs, they're methodically shown to us like a slideshow. It conveys tone and mood rather than information. We feel tense without anyone having to say or do anything. When you show something to the audience, especially in an insert shot, you have to be intentional. Every decision matters. The framing, the camera movements, they're all calculated and precise. Which is why this shot of a tree is honestly my favorite shot that Denis and Roger have ever put on screen. The reason I think this shot is so great is because it's an insert shot that conveys information in a more abstract way. It's not evidence or plot. The tree has no meaning in this story or scene, practically speaking. But in terms of setting mood and tension, this tree says absolutely everything. Of course, out of context, this tree might seem odd, but if you consider where this shot takes place in the film, it's essentially the last moment of calm before everything goes wrong. Following this shot is when two young girls go missing and a family is ripped to shreds. It symbolizes the terror of something awful happening in a calm, boring suburban neighborhood. A place where a tree is nothing more than a tree, until that tree is surrounded by grief, fear, evil, and despair. I think a lot of other filmmakers would have treated this shot more sinister. They would have spoon-fed the feeling to the audience by making it more stylistic and moody.
In Prisoners, there's a shot where we just push into a tree, and that was on a date. Where does this go? Who knew? But he just saw it and thought, this will work. And by going on his gut, it ends up being much more applicable, I think, to telling the story.
I love this shot so much. I wanted to see if I could create a little short film compiled of nothing but insert shots. Frames that just simply convey mood and composition with music. But before I show you that little short and how I put it together, we're going to hear from today's sponsor, MusicBed. The MusicBed Challenge is back for 2022. This is an excellent opportunity for filmmakers and creators to make their dream project. It's also a great way to get your work in front of a panel of incredible judges in the industry. Plus, you have the chance to win from a pool of a bunch of amazing prizes totaling over $100,000, including this really sweet high-speed camera from FreeFly. Click the link in the description to submit your project to one of the three categories: narrative, documentary, or spec ad. Look, I've been using MusicBed for nearly 5 years now for all of my projects, and I submitted my own spec ad for headphones a couple years ago to the MusicBed Challenge. And to this day, even though I didn't win, it's one of my favorite projects to date. Having a competition like this to finally make the film that you've been sitting on is a huge motivator, and I'm planning on submitting again this year. So head over to challenge.musicbed.com to download the starter kit and get all the details you need to get going. Submissions open April 12th, and I'm very excited to see what everyone submits. Thank you again to MusicBed for sponsoring this video. Now, the tree shot in Prisoners isn't the only time Denis has utilized this sort of mood, weird, kind of emotional insert shot. Another one of my favorites is in Sicario. So right before the SWAT team enters this cartel house, we're presented with a shot of drapes at a window, and you can sort of see dust speckling in the wind. It's this beat just before all hell breaks loose, this moment of tension and calm before insanity. As you're watching it, you think, yeah, this looks really nice, but more so, what am I actually looking at? Something just doesn't feel right. It feels off.
I finished this movie and I go, I don't know how it's going to turn out. And I think he created an ambience where it was totally collective, totally communicative, but also didn't give you a feeling of accomplishment, which I think is in the movie. When you watch the movie, you feel just a little uneasy, you're pulled in, but something you know is amiss, you know? And that's how it felt doing the movie. So when we watched the movie, it's like, wow.
Even recently in Dune, when Paul first uses the voice, we don't just see him use the voice, we cut to these moments within the dining room. Shots of wind chimes, some stuff on a table, and the bull. And yeah, some of this does make sense for the plot later on, but more than anything, it just sets the mood for this scene. It gives the audience a moment to just settle and rest and feel the tension and the pace.
Almost.
And that's really what fascinates me about these insert shots, is because they're more so B-roll than they are insert shots. They're just as important as the story itself and the entire feeling that you get while watching Denis movies. And that's why I wanted to make a little short film compiled of nothing but these sort of mood, weird insert shots. So that's what I did. And I'm going to show you this little short film now. Again, this has no narrative, there's no plot line, no storyline. I'm just practicing. I want to see if I can do shots like this as a cinematographer and a filmmaker. So please enjoy this little short film called Inserts, because I couldn't think of a better name. And then we'll talk about how I put this together and some things that I learned along the way. It's really interesting what happens when you take something that might seem somewhat mundane on the surface. The way you compose it and craft those images with music says absolutely everything, though. Something as simple as a tea kettle, right, can become tense and terrifying and scary just in the way that you light and shoot the scene. Now, one of the things I learned throughout this entire process is that shooting inserts is difficult. We've all heard the stories of David Fincher taking 20, 30, 40 takes with actors in dialogue scenes. I've heard he takes even longer shooting insert shots, because the thing is, when you're shooting an insert, everything has to be perfect. You're so hyper-focused on the frame that when you're sitting there and you're looking at it, you really get psychotic and detail oriented to make sure, like, yeah, that needs to be exactly where that is, and the light has to hit this exactly where I want the light to hit it, and the movement has to be so precise. So you sit there doing it 3, 4 times, 6 times, 7 times, then you know an hour has been spent on what seemed like the most simple shot ever, like a shot of a tree. Just look at this behind the scenes clip from ZODIAC of Jake just trying to throw a book on the passenger seat.
And action. Now cut it. And action. And action. 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 Now 2D. Nope. Once again. Check. Oh my.
Make it a man before 10 by Marine. 6400 reach the street top of the hill 86.
In terms of the actual technical production side of this, I use the A7 IV, which I've been using to film all my YouTube videos lately, and it's been a workhorse of a camera for me. I highly recommend it. And then for lighting, I'm using this new Godox 120 watt tube light. And you know, look, YouTube is full of videos praising tube lights. I haven't really dabbled with them too much until recently, and I'm very much enjoying using this tube light. I use it for everything. I'm using it now to even light this video. This tube has honestly been a dream to work with. You really don't even have to diffuse it that much. And of course it's RGB, so you can set it to whatever color temperature you want to, which just made all of these shots so much easier. But look, I hope you enjoyed this dive into a very specific style of shot that I love from Denis Villeneuve, and this little practice session that I put together to see if we could try and pull this sort of stuff off ourselves. I also have a short film coming very soon. Not entirely sure how I want to release it just yet, but I'm very excited with it. It's done. So I'm just thinking the distribution now of how I'm going to show it to you guys, but a lot of that short film was influenced by everything I learned putting this essay together and these shot styles, so I'm very excited to share that with you. It will be coming very, very, very soon. But otherwise, my name is Patrick Tomasso. I hope you enjoyed this video, and you will see or hear me next time I feel like making a video. Cheers.